views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Welcome to Beyond Just Talk. This is a positive, inspirational, and thought-provoking program that discusses life and business topics from a solution-oriented perspective with your host, S.L. Young.
All right, welcome. It's another great day, and we're ready to discuss subjects that will make a difference in your day. This is the place that people connect, ideas are shared, and lives are enriched. My name is Stacey Young. My author's name is S.L. Young, but please call me Sly. Before we get started today, next week, my guest is an award-winning writer and director who was nominated for Best Drama, Best Director, and Best Writer, along with having produced several other film-related products that received industry recognition. For this week, we'll recap last week's show, discuss Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, chat with my special guest, Nikia Vaughan, have a conversation with my featured guest, Kier Junior Spates, a quickly rising comedic star, and preview next week's guests. So for a recap of last week's show, it was almost a party in the studio. We just needed a few drinks and it would have really gotten wild. My first guest last week was Tori Berry, who is a musician who I met by happenstance while he was singing and playing his guitar at a metro station. Mr. Berry shared with us his dream of becoming a recognized musician, along with sharing his delightful musical talents throughout the show. Mr. Berry, not unlike many subway musicians, is very talented, but is looking for that first big break to really get his career moving. It was very exciting to have a musician singing live in the studio. At the time that I started to plan for the show, my dream was to introduce talented artists who, for whatever reason, couldn't get their first break on radio or TV. Once this happened last week, I must admit that it was a very exciting experience to see my dream of introducing an artist be fulfilled, but more importantly, to be part of the joy of making someone else's dream come true, which is absolutely priceless. And if this wasn't even the best part of the story, while I interviewed my featured guest, I noticed that Mr. Berry received a message on his phone that caused him to have a visible reaction. And then after the show, I learned that his stepdad, who lives several states away, drove to the station to celebrate his first on-air moment with him. I told Mr. Berry after learning about this that I could have cried for him. Watching his stepdad's pride as he was about to give him an embrace after saying he had just heard him on the radio for the first time is a moment that I won't ever forget. After the show, I felt compelled to write an article entitled Introducing Tori Berry, one of many struggling subway musicians, about the 4 crazy days after meeting Mr. Berry outside of the subway on Friday, booking him on my show on Sunday, and having him sing live on my show on Tuesday. If you'd like to read my article with a link to my blog on the Huffington Post, it's available at slyoung.com/Tori, that's Torrey, -Berry, Berry.html. My featured guest last week was Beth Jannery, who is a former journalist whose work includes covering the Pentagon, an author, and the director of journalism at the George Mason University. Ms. Jannery has written several books about learning to live a meaningful life and a couple of page-turner paperback novels. She shared her viewpoint that writing is about doing. She doesn't believe in writer's block. Her advice for aspiring writers is to just start writing. Get your thoughts documented, and then go back and edit as many times as necessary. Also, she shared that her main source of writing inspiration comes from her life experiences, which can be a powerful tool to create purposeful works that connect with readers on a more personal level. Moreover, Ms. Jannery discussed her love for teaching, which she said wasn't something that she wanted to do. It was something she had to do. If you miss either of these conversations, you can listen to them on my website at slyoung.com/bjt-radio.html. If you'd like to connect with me after the show, you can reach me on my website at slyoung.com, on Facebook at facebook.com/beyondjusttalk, one word, or you can locate me on Twitter, Google+, Instagram, and SoundCloud using the handle SLYoungVA. On a more personal note, this month, July, is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. This is especially significant for me as I've battled depression and almost took my life in March 2014. Since that time, I've worked to document my journey to help others through articles on my website and the Huffington Post, interviews, and my book, Choosing to Take a Stand, Change Me, My Life, and My Destiny. This book details my battle with depression and my journey to recover after a near suicide in a very candid manner, along with providing personal insights to help anyone who might be affected by depression. On my website, I have a hidden link to a collection of my materials that addresses depression on many different levels. This information is available at slyoung.com/depression.html. Now, before I continue with today's show, I want to welcome a special guest, Nikia Vaughan, who will provide insight for couples who might have one or both partners that have sickle cell disease, the trait, or a combination of both and are considering having a child. Nikia Vaughan, welcome to Beyond Just Talk.
Good morning, Mr. Young, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm glad that you're here with us, and please call me Sly.
All right, Sly.
So, why is sickle cell disease important to you?
Sickle cell disease awareness is important to me because both my husband and my daughter Cimone have sickle cell SS. My daughter was diagnosed at 6 weeks old with the disease.
Okay. And then, so if I remember correctly, your husband has the actual disease of sickle cell,
yes.
And you had the trait, correct?
And I have the trait. That is correct. And I found out that I had the trait when I was pregnant with my son, who does not have sickle cell disease. He just has the trait. So I passed the trait both times.
Right. And just to make sure that everybody's clear about what we're talking about in terms of the trait, so someone who has the sickle cell trait, it's basically a passing of the sickle cell gene mutation from a parent to a child, which actually occurs in approximately 1 in 12 African Americans.
That is 100% correct. I apologize.
Oh,
yes.
No worries. And then how does someone determine if they're affected by sickle cell disease?
So someone will determine if they have sickle cell disease now at this day and age by a newborn screening test, which is now mandated in all 50 states. Before, people who are older, maybe in their 30s and above, may not have known that they had sickle cell trait or disease unless they had a crisis or were tested for it.
Okay, great. And do you know the risk of parents with similar medical characteristics of passing the sickle cell disease or trait onto their child?
Yes, so it is very important for genetic counseling to be done if you plan on getting pregnant. And in my case, my husband and I knew that there was a very high chance of our daughter getting sickle cell disease. And unfortunately, we did pass the trait, as my husband will always pass the trait, and it's a 50-50 chance on myself for passing the trait. And yes, my daughter Cimone did inherit the disease, and it's very important that parents who are considering having children get tested to know what your options are at that time.
Right. And so is there anything that parents with the sickle cell characteristics can do to minimize the risk of passing on the disease?
There is absolutely nothing that can be done to prevent passing the trait, unfortunately. It is completely genetic.
And then when you were talking about your son, you said that he has the trait. And when you said that he was diagnosed during the pregnancy?
So my husband is not my son's biological father. So when I was pregnant, I was made aware that I had the trait, and that was new to me. I didn't know anything about sickle cell, and his father had to be tested, and his father did not have the trait. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, when my son was born, he was tested, and I did pass the trait. So therefore, my son Langston will have to, be mindful of that when he is considering getting married with his partner to find out if she has the trait as well.
Okay, great. And then, so what advice do you offer to parents who have a newborn with sickle cell disease?
So the advice that I give to parents who have a newborn with sickle cell disease is to make sure you get your child in care directly with a hematologist as soon as possible. You need to learn all of the information about pain crisis and what to do and what not to do, especially if you're having caregivers take care of your children. It's very critical that if your child has a fever that you do not administer Tylenol, because that could be an onset of a crisis. And right now, currently, I am the lead mentor of parents here in the state of Maryland with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and I encourage everyone to try to get some type of parental support in their community to help them with that.
And that's a great segue, because I know that you have a lot of valuable experiences now with your challenges or your journey with sickle cell disease, and you've become an advocate, correct?
Yes.
And so what are you working on to help others who have this disease?
So I started an organization in 2013 called Cimone and Friends, with the C, Cimone, and Friends, to help raise awareness and to support other parents, and so that I could become a support for other people. And this past June, the city of Baltimore did recognize Sickle Cell Awareness Day on June 19th by the mayor, Stephanie Rawlings Blake, and the city council. Also, Lightbridge Health with Dr. Wiley and Monica Picardi of the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene are all very supportive of my journey. In September, we will be having a concert, Rock Out Sickle Cell, featuring Woody, formerly of Drew Hill, and local artists here that will support, and all of the proceeds will benefit Lightbridge Health, in which Cimone goes for hematology support here in Baltimore.
Okay, great. So that covers some of the upcoming events. Anything else planned?
Right now, we do not have anything else planned. We just really need volunteers. If you're in the DMV area, please contact us at CimoneandFriends.com, and you can get all of the information there. But every day I advocate, I inform on Instagram and social media, giving information to parents, to children, to everyone in the community to know how important that this disease is. It is very underserved, and we have to continue the fight. In October of last year, we did gain 100,000 signatures needed for the White House to get the support and funding that we need to President Obama, and I write to him monthly, and he sends back monthly, but we're going to get through this, yes, and I really appreciate everyone's help.
All right. Well, Ms. Vaughan, thanks for being on Beyond Just Talk. I wish you the best of luck for you and your family, along with my heartfelt thanks for the very important work that you're doing.
Thank you very much, Sly. It was a pleasure for you having me here, and I look forward to speaking with you again and continuing to listen to your show. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're just getting started today with this necessary conversation about sickle cell disease. So stay tuned for the rest of the show, because we still have our great guests coming up. In terms of the rest of today's show, we'll discuss sickle cell disease generally and the challenges with living with it, discuss my featured guest's journey with the disease, learn about his role as the ambassador for the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America, and discuss some of the misconceptions or misunderstandings about sickle cell disease, and also learn about his career as a comedian and actor. Before I introduce today's guest, I want listeners to know that if you'd like to join our conversation, please dial 1-800-450-7876. Now, my guest today, Kier Junior Spates, is an up-and-coming comedic icon, someone who has traveled the globe with legendary talents such as Aretha Franklin, Frankie Beverly and Mays, Anita Baker, and more. In 2005, he toured as one of the primary acts on the Ricky Smiley and Friends show, along with going on military and USO, United States Organization tours, and visited college campuses. In 2013, the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America, which we'll further refer to as SCDAA, announced that Mr. Spates would become its national celebrity ambassador for the Rise Above campaign after his disclosure about his struggles with the disease. His on-screen credits include performances on Getting Paid and BET's Comic View, which received rave reviews, several popular stage plays, including Confessions that starred the late Gerald Levert, Kelly Price, and Tommy Ford, and he's also heard weekdays on a very popular national morning show. Now, without further ado, I welcome my guest, who is a comedic force who is unforgettable. He's driven by the belief that laughter doeth the heart good like medicine. Also, he's a man who has plenty of prescriptions to aid with your recovery, and his job is to get you well. According to one of his catchphrases, this just got serious. Kier Junior Spates, welcome to Beyond Just Talk.
Thank you, Sly. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me, man.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate having you on the show today, and we're really not going to get into the conversation yet because I need to go into a break and here in just a moment. But quickly, who's Kier Junior Spates?
He's a lot of different people. That's 3 different people you named. Kier is a person, man, that's fun, laughable. Junior's just crazy, and Mr. Spates is what they call me when I do this.
All right. Well, we're going to have to hold on right there, and we will be right back in just a moment.
It's 3 different people.
All right.
950 WOL AM, where information is power.
Good morning, it's WOL. Traffic update is brought to you by the Reebok Spartan Race, Gallatin Street Northeast, Wires down to the roadway at Fort Taunton Drive. You're going to be directed around that. Southbound 295, still pretty heavy from Benning Road down to East Capitol Street. Downtown Constitution Avenue, 15th Street Northwest. It was an accident. The Reebok Spartan Race is coming to Washington, D.C. on August 1st. Get started at Spartan.com and use promo code Radio10 to save $10. The Reebok Spartan Race Challenge accepted. Now your WOL weather forecast brought to you by Noodles & Company for today. Partly cloudy, very warm day, high near 92 degrees. Clear to partly cloudy overnight down to 73. Tomorrow, some scattered afternoon thunderstorms and a high near 87 degrees. At Noodles & Company, lunch is different. Different is made to order, sautéed fresh, one pan at a time. Different is better. Noodles & Company, made different. Steve Hirschhorn for News Talk 1450 WOL AM, where information is power.
Welcome back to Beyond Just Talk with your host, S.L. Young.
All right, folks, welcome back, and welcome to our guest, Kier Junior Spates, who's on with us today. And right before the break, I started to introduce him, and he was telling us that he's three different people. What do you mean?
I'm three different people, man. I'm a lot of different people, dude. You talk about Kier Spates, man. I have always been, a guy, man, that's always been crazy, like to have fun, talk a lot of noise, all that noise stuff, man. And Junior is the entertainer, man. That's what he does. He's just out there. That's what I do. Stand-up's my first love. I love doing stand-up because that's the gift I was given. I knew that at a very young age that I had the ability to make people laugh in tough situations, man. And then, Spates is just, my daddy last name that they had to give it to me because I was his.
Right. At least he claimed you, right?
No, well, according to my mama, that ain't my daddy. That ain't got nothing to do with what we talking about.
All right. So now that you've described who you are, let's discuss what you have, and which is sickle cell disease.
Yes, sir.
And so what is it?
Man, sickle cell disease is a blood disorder where we don't have full red blood cells. Your blood cells are circular. They're full of oxygen. And my blood cells, some of them look like half crescent moons, and they carry less oxygen, and then they stick in the veins, man, and block blood flow and cause a pain crisis that is out this world. Growing up, I was diagnosed at 7 years old, and so for parents that have kids with sickle cell, and this is a story. First of all, so let me just say thank you for even taking the time out to discuss something like this.
Oh, thank you.
Man, I really appreciate you. I couldn't believe you reached out to me and wanted to actually discuss it, and I was obligated to do that. But I was diagnosed at 7, My parents had no idea what was wrong with their child for 7 years. This is in 1978 when I was born. For 7 years, they had no clue what was wrong with their child, and that's tough for parents to go through.
Right.
Your firstborn child to have such a horrific disease, and you not even know exactly what that is.
Right.
And it's a lot of late nights up crying. This baby just won't stop, and he'll go on and on and on and on and on. And they take him to the hospital, and they say, well, he's allergic to milk. Then they take him back, and they're like, well, it's oatmeal. And the entire time for 7 years, it was sickle cell.
And before we move on, I want to go back and just make sure that my whole audience is caught up on sickle cell disease and make sure that we're giving a really informed conversation. So normally red blood cells are round and free-flowing to provide oxygen to various parts of the body.
Yeah.
These red blood cells carry the hemoglobin molecule. In sickle cell red blood cells, the cells have a sickle shape. This prevents the cells from flowing freely, which can cause a blockage of blood flow. If the blood doesn't flow properly through the vessels of the tissues, then an individual gets ischemia. If the blood is completely blocked from reaching the tissue, then an individual gets infarction, which can lead to tissues dying since there isn't a normal delivery of oxygen that the hemoglobin normally would deliver. So with infarction, this issue is created due to poor circulation because the red blood cells clump together and stick to the sides of the blood vessels. So both ischemia and infarction can lead to a painful crisis of sickle cell, which both of my guests have referred to already. So you were just describing, when you first found out about it around age 7, and then your family was going through the series of tests just to try to figure out what was going on. So how did this impact your family?
And that's another thing too, man. And I really speak from the family point of view because I don't know if I would have made it without my family. The fact that your parents have to take off work because their child is in the hospital because of sickle cell. The financial impact, I don't know how they did it. With the medical bills piling up, dad taking off work, they working in shifts. My mom wasn't working at the time, and then she got a job, and then she, they just had to change shifts and work around it. Then you have to call grandmother in, then somebody's got to take care of my sister. and that one person could cost a household an incredible amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Just from having sickle cell. That I really had to be thankful for my parents for the sacrifice that they made for me. And I know any parent would do that, but I'm just saying, just from a child, I would always have to battle depression because I thought about how much of a problem I was.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really, that's the first thing that I actually had to encounter with sickle cell was battling depression. Because you go in and out of a hospital so many times a year, it makes you think that something's wrong. You're not like other children.
Mm.
You don't have the lifestyle of other children. It's embarrassing to go get in an ambulance in front of everybody. They come get you out to school, and everybody's saying, what's wrong with him? And you don't want to say exactly what it is. You really just don't want to talk about it anymore because you're going through this whole process again.
Right, because you don't want to be different, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be different. No kid wants to be different, and that was something that I was. I was just different.
Right.
I had different circumstances, and I think what I've realized about people with sickle cell is they develop a fortitude, an intestinal fortitude for fighting through life.
Mm.
Because your actual life is a fight, man. You have to fight every day. Every day I wake up now, my attitude has to be in tip-top shape because I understand what I'm up against.
Mm-hmm.
But I refuse to let sickle cell take something from me again. It started when I was in high school. It started my senior year. A new team doctor came. A student told him I had sickle cell, and he snatched me off the football team. Now, I was a very athletic guy. I played football, basketball, track, and he snatched me off the football team because of what another student said. Now, I've been in this program for 7-8 years. I started playing on varsity as a sophomore. This is my year for scholarship to play college football. And a doctor comes in and snatches me out, and I missed 4 games in my senior year. And that's when I developed the attitude that I would not let sickle cell take something else from me.
Right. And I'm sure that was probably pretty devastating for you at that time.
It was very devastating. It was very devastating that I have my senior year. This is a chance for me to actually find a way to pay for my education. I said, I'm not gonna allow this to happen. And when they took me off the team, I threw such a big fit because I was angry that something inside of me cost me something. I had to pay a price because of the way I was born. And I vowed that would never happen again. That's how the mindset for Kier Spates developed about my attitude towards sickle cell. Yes, I have it. I do. But there's so many things that I can do because one thing they love to do, they love to tell people with sickle cell, is what they cannot do.
Right.
We are so adamant on telling them what they can't do. We can't do this. We can't do that. Well, if you do that, you could have a sickle cell crisis. You could do this. You could do that. They so adamant about telling. And no one has ever asked the question, what do you want to do?
Or what you can do.
Or what you can do. We can do all of these things. We can do all of these things. And I'm glad I had my mother and my father had the attitude to let me go ahead and do what I wanted to do. And the doctor had to ask the question, said, well, if he goes out there and play and he dies, then what about that then? Then my mother said, well, he died doing what he loved to do.
Mm-hmm. So your mother was telling you to live.
Yeah, live. You have to.
Don't let the disease control you.
Man, the disease is going to be there until we find a cure. That's what we're working for. But you still have to live. Man, do you realize that there are going to be babies born with sickle cell? And they're going to need examples of how to live life with sickle cell?
Mm-hmm.
Do you realize that? It's going to be some more kids. Because what we ain't finna do, we ain't finna stop having babies. Let's just be clear about that. Let's just go and be honest.
That ain't going to happen, right?
Stop having babies. Sickle cell, no sickle cell, they not stopping. Sicklecillians are getting together and having other sicklecillians. That's just honest. And so with that, though, I think it's important that we set the example of how to live. They need to see us shining bright about how we live with sickle cell.
Mm-hmm.
People see me everywhere, man. I'm upbeat. I'm always honest about how I feel, man. I feel good. I do have days where I don't feel good, but that doesn't show, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have to be an example for the other generations that are coming up behind us. They got to have an example of how to live with this disease. Because it's going to be some of them. Now, the hospital session alone is already terrible.
Right.
That right there alone is already terrible. So once you get over that, then what? You can't sit around and mope. I can't feel sorry for myself. I can't have a woe is me conversation. It's time to get back up out here and say, you know what, I'm down right now. Well, give me 3-4 days. I'll be right back. Last crisis I had was Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday, man.
Mm.
I went into the hospital Easter Sunday. And then I got out that Wednesday. Saturday, I was on stage in Charlotte, North Carolina, 8 o'clock, clowning. Because I have to get back out here, man. You know, they always say, you take your time. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to do it the right way. But you got to get back on the living, man.
Yeah, and I want to back up just a little bit because you were talking about all these things that they told you that you couldn't do. And as I was doing my research on you prior to the show, some of the things that I read was...
Researching me, Flash?
Of course. You just ain't going to come on without me researching you.
You just checking me out, Flash?
I ain't going to tell all the bad stuff that I found out. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's good. You like that.
All right.
What's it, brother?
All right. So you were told that you might not live to the age of 11. That was one of the things you were told.
Yeah, man. They always love to put a number on you now.
Right.
They always put an expiration date on sickle cell kids. I don't know why it is. Is it something about we like bad milk or something? I mean, they always got a number for you. Some people's numbers a little higher than others, man. But, yeah, I surpassed that. I mean, I'm well over expired now. You know, I'll be 37 in a couple of weeks. I'm well over expired.
And we're glad that you're still here.
Yeah, man, I'm still here, man. So, you know, I ignored all that, man. It all comes down to your attitude. You have to have a positive attitude.
But the other thing that I thought... I'm sorry, but the other thing that I thought was great in your story is that, you know, a lot of folks might say someone has sickle cell disease, they should go sit down somewhere and not do anything. But not only did you get out there and play these sports, including running track and field, but you also played football. And that's probably something folks would say you shouldn't do.
And it was awesome, too. I was excited to see on a football field, man. Starting running back the whole nine, man. Ran a 4.3. I was out there active, dude, because in my mind, I did not know what the effects of sickle cell were other than the hospital. I did not know I was not supposed to do these things. Right. I wasn't allowed to believe that I was not able to do these things. I wasn't able to do that. And so in my own mind, I was free. I was cool. It was all right for me to go out here and get tackled. It was all right to go here and sprint. You know, and it was other precautions that were put inside, like I stay hydrated and stuff like that. You know, and it was so many different things that kids with sickle cell don't get to do. Man, when I found out I had a sickle cell crisis, this is when I first found out that I couldn't go swimming. The first time I got out of the pool and went into a sickle cell crisis, I thought, well, it must have been time to have sickle cell crisis. Get out the hospital 2 weeks later, go back to the pool, and go back in the hospital. And the doctor's like, what are we doing here? Mom said, well, he went swimming. The doctor said, what time? It was like 5 in the afternoon. He said, he can't go swimming at 5 in the afternoon. No, I didn't. That's how I found out I wasn't supposed to go swimming at 5 in the afternoon. You have to go in the heat of the day because the cold water restricts our blood vessels. But what child you know doesn't want to go swimming?
Right.
These are things that some kids can't even do, no matter what time of the day it is.
And we have to manage some of those limitations. But I think the other thing that was important that you mentioned was that folks were putting unnecessary limitations on you. And whether you have sickle cell disease or not, that's something that we do too often is put unnecessary limitations on others.
Man, I mean, come on now. They got people with and this is not a knock or anything, but they got people with limbs missing running marathons. You hear what I'm saying, man? They told them they couldn't run no marathon. They ran it. And it takes that type of attitude when you have sickle cell, man. So don't allow them to put stipulations on you. It's easy for people to sit on the sideline who don't have sickle cell and tell you what you can't do, and yet you live with sickle cell and know what you are capable of doing. That's two different mindsets. You looking at me and just looking at the disease. You're not looking at the fighter and the person that I am.
And that's why you're a great example and ambassador to let other folks out there know that if you have sickle cell disease, it's not something that's necessarily a limiter. You have to figure out how to manage it.
Yeah, it's not a death warrant. It's not.
So we're going to take another break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Well, take a break, Sly. I'm here, man.
News Talk 1450 WOL AM, where information is power.
This report with Arnold Bread. Arnold Whole Grains Bread, packed with whole grains, giving you the whole grain nutrition you need in the tastes you love. The mother of an infant found abandoned in Anne Arundel County is being held on $500,000 bond. Sandra McClary is charged with child neglect and reckless endangerment. Police arrested the 26-year-old Baltimore woman on Sunday. McClary allegedly left her 6-week-old daughter in her car seat on a street in Pasadena. Callers to 911 alerted police.
And there's no one around?
No one at all. She's in a stroller. We don't want anybody to run over her. She's out in the street.
Child Protective Services has custody of the baby, who is said to be in good condition. There were delays on the Orange Line yesterday morning when a man was hit and killed by a train. Transit police say it appears the man threw himself in front of the train as it was pulling into the West Falls Church station. A federal grand jury in Greenbelt yesterday indicted 3 alleged gang members. Aldair Garcia Miranda, Selvin Salazar, and Raul Landaverde Giron all live in Montgomery County. They're charged with 2 murders and 3 attempted murders. A 19-year-old from Northern Virginia drowned in Lake Anna over the weekend. Spotsylvania and Louisa County authorities recovered the body of Justin Biggs of Fairfax County Sunday evening just 20 feet from a dock. He had gone swimming Sunday morning. Governor Larry Hogan says his cancer treatments are going well.
The support and love and prayers I've been getting from all across the state and the nation have been incredible.
He spoke in Annapolis yesterday. Hogan's had 5 straight days of chemotherapy. The Orioles and the Nationals both lost. Florida's governor signed legislation allowing the Nationals and the Houston Astros to move forward with plans to build a shared facility in West Palm Beach. Construction on the new spring ballpark could begin this fall. This report brought to you by Unbound. At Unbound, they believe in the potential of an educated child to change the life of her family, her community, and our world. Learn more at unbound.org. I'm John Lewis. When you're looking for news from Black America, go to newsone.com.
Welcome back to Beyond Just Talk with your host, S.L. Young.
All right, folks, welcome back to Beyond Just Talk with S.L. Young. And if you'd like to join the conversation, you can dial in at 1-800-450-7876. We're having a conversation today with my guest, Kier Junior Spates, and we're talking about sickle cell disease and making sure that folks have more information about it. As we continue our discussion, so what are some of the challenges with living with sickle cell disease?
Things that trigger the crisis is so crazy, man. Dehydration can put you in the hospital. My biggest trigger is weather change. It goes from hot to cold, cold to hot, changing of season. You know, those type of things is times that I have to be really careful about my activity and how I'm doing and the level. I mean, stress, you know, that's a trigger for me too. And it's not just bad stress, good stress. Mm-hmm. You know, is also be a trigger for you, man. So I have to really manage about how I go about doing things. You know, I got enough people around me say, okay, Junior, that's enough. You got to slow it down. Okay, man. All right, Kier, go sit down somewhere. You know, and I really don't want to. You know, but I understand that is a actual necessary thing for me, man, to stay healthy and to make sure that I carry myself in the best possible physical condition that I can, man. You know, I work out to make sure that I keep that up, you know, because I don't want to have inactivity and then, you know, that something light like the weather may trigger crisis or something like that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a lot of different struggles, man. You know, you talk about it's mental, it's physical, you know, so you got to manage both of them, you know, because you can just be sitting up here just working and doing your regular job and stress get to you and that triggers a crisis, man. You know, one thing I don't like doing, I don't like standing up. I don't. I really don't. I hate getting admitted. You know, I do. I hate getting admitted.
And one of the things that you were just talking about is the mental and physical stress of it all, but we can also have that emotional stress, which can be a little bit different as well, absolutely, which can lead to that depression. But let's talk about sickle cell disease and some of the things that it can cause. So one of the things it can cause is anemia. Someone's blood has a shortage of red blood cells, lung tissue damage, horrible pain episodes in the arms, legs, chest, and abdomen, stroke, damage to the organs, and death. So as we talk about these things, in terms of what actually happens, what are some of the misconceptions that are out there about sickle cell disease?
Yeah, one of the misconceptions is, like, it's contagious. You know, like, I mean, I actually have people come to me and say, you think if I touch it, I catch it? No, it's not contagious. You actually have to be born into this fraternity, okay? You have to be born into it, literally. I mean, that is one of the biggest lies I've heard out there about sickle cell is that it's contagious, and it's not. You know, and actually people scared to touch you because they think they gonna get it. Mm-hmm. You know, if I cut myself or something like that, you know, you're not gonna. It is strictly genetic, and you know, that's the biggest thing that I've ran across, man. I get that question a lot when I'm speaking. Sometimes they just like, is it contagious? It's not the cold, people. It's not the cold, not the flu. It's none of that. It's just sickle cell.
And then let's continue on talking about misconceptions because, again, as I was researching this topic, because I wanted to make sure that we had a really informed conversation, here's some of the things that I found, and you let me know if some of these are misconceptions as well. Once someone gets a certain age, the pain crisis will stop.
No.
Doctors completely understand the impacts and pain someone with sickle cell disease experiences.
Depending on who the doctor is. There's some good doctors, there's bad doctors. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, I've had something run in with both. I don't think that one of the another misconceptions is that we're pain seekers. You know what I mean? In other words, we come out there, we just come into the hospital just to get pain shots.
And that actually leads to another point. One of the things that I saw was that some folks say those living with sickle cell disease are junkies who use their health as an excuse to get it fixed.
Yeah. Fly, you seen me? Do I look junkish to you?
No.
You know some junkies now. Let's be honest. Do I look junkyish to you? I don't know if that's a word, but I'm using it. No, we're not junkies. It's not. No. And that's sad, man. That's sad.
Well,
it's sad for people because people don't understand the level. I put it like this. They always ask me, what is it like to have a sickle cell crisis? I said, okay, it's like say if I'm having a sickle cell crisis in my shoulders and my back and chest or whatever, it's like taking 10,000 knives and stabbing me in it and then throwing me in front of an 18-wheeler going sick.
Wow.
Now, the pain shot does not make the pain go away. The pain shot makes it bearable. So you have some doctors who won't give you enough pain medicine for you to even make it bearable. And that's one of the things that we have to change, man. People need help. They actually are hurting. They're not in here playing. I don't know who in the world see a hospital pull over and say, let me just go in here and get some morphine. I really don't. And that's just one of the things that really burns me up is that they think we in here just stopping in just to don't give them any more medication. And then in some cases, they die. I hate to say it, I just lost a friend to sickle cell about 8 days ago, man. And I understand. I can't understand how we keep losing people to this disease, and it does not get the attention that it is warranted.
Right.
I get the fact that it's a predominantly African American disease.
And that was my other misconception.
I really, I get, but that, it's predominant. It's not limited to us.
Right. Only affects black
people. It's a worldwide
right?
issue. This is a worldwide issue. Okay, and they're not just dying here; they're dying worldwide. But I got that. But what are we gonna do to correct the problem? It's always like sometimes, man. It's always like it's almost a little bit too late. See, it's got to happen to you. It's got to happen to you effect. Like it don't bother me until it happens to you. You don't feel nothing for sickle cell until your child has it.
We're popular about having that not in my backyard type of mentality.
Yeah. And yet, it didn't have to be that way, man. It can actually be where we get proactive. Now, there's certain things that we must do. We must go to the doctor. You must go see your physician. You must go check in regularly and find out where you at. Figure what your blood count is, how you doing. That's PM called preventive maintenance. Mm-hmm. Get that done. Get as healthy as possible. Because sickle cell right now, there's not a cure, but right now it's about quality of life. And you can have a great quality of life.
And you were talking about there isn't a cure right now. One of the other things that I read in preparing for the show is that a bone marrow transplant is the only known cure for sickle cell disease, which requires a matching donor. Is that correct?
Well, that's for doctors and stuff. But I don't consider that a cure because it doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
That's what a cure is. Cure is something that works for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's a bone marrow transplant. If it works, that's great. That is awesome. I'm all for that. But the risk for me, I looked into that. It just wouldn't be a good risk for me,
And everybody's got to make that judgment for themselves.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a judgment call. Hey, that's how you feel. But a cure is something that works for everyone.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what are some of the treatment options. So obviously we've talked about pain medicine such as morphine and opiates. And you mentioned earlier a little bit about hydration, because one of the things with sickle cell disease can lead to dehydration because of the sickling effect. Mm-hmm. There's also the potential for transfusions to provide more red blood cells, and then antibiotics for the times that, and I'm just going to go a little bit further here, that the spleen can have reduced function because of red blood cells accumulating in the spleen, and it can't get rid of these cells normally. And this condition leads to functional splenia that causes unwanted bacteria, and that's where the antibiotics can sort of help with that. Any other treatments that you know of?
I think you nailed them all, but pretty much for me, man, it's hydration. One thing that we must do is mandatory is that we do stay hydrated. That is very important. You have to drink plenty of fluids. To stay above levels, and that's my thing. I drink about 8-10 bottles of water a day. I just have water. I don't even do sodas really. I just do waters. But that's pretty much it, man. I've had the blood transfusions. I've had 3 blood transfusions. That's tough.
Can you educate us a little bit about the blood transfusion process?
Man, okay. I don't know how they're doing it now because I hadn't had one in some years, but the last one I had, man, they put an IV and they draw blood out of one side of your arm. Mm-hmm. They do it in my arm, and they hook up another one, and they pump blood in one arm, and they take it out through the other. And they do about, it's like kind of like getting an oil change. It's like, they'll dip out 5 quarts. They put in 5 quarts, but we're talking about pints of blood here.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it was like 7 pints of blood I had to take. And it takes a while to do that, man. And I had came out of a surgery, so I was really weak. And you have to pump, man. I had to pump. I guess it was about 4 or 5 hours, to get this blood through, man. And I just came out of surgery, so I was still on the medication. But anytime you start talking like that, man, it's just like, that's the part that I hate discussing is that how much these people have to go through. You talk about a blood transfusion. If you stop, you die. I mean, man, it's crazy. Like with sickle cell, man, it's like the positive. Where are we gonna get the positive at, man? That's where we got to start focusing on. Where are we gonna get the positive at? I'm glad that we got the 100,000 signatures this past October. I think that there's a lot of great things going on with sickle cell. I think we just got to stay focused, man, and keep pushing, keep this awareness, get more awareness out there, build more awareness out. If I go on the road and I'm doing a show, I don't even do the interview unless I can talk about sickle.
And I think that one of the main reasons that I really connected with your story and what you're trying to do out there, because when you are suffering or you're affected by something, it can be very difficult to share your story. And so part of your story is you didn't want to tell anything about it. And I didn't want to tell anything about my depression and near suicide. But there's a lot of importance in doing that, not only just for yourself, but also for all those others who you might be saving their lives because you're telling your story.
Right. I didn't want to talk about it at first because, for one thing, I didn't know anybody with sickle cell. So I had nobody really to bounce this off of. The only person who really knew, my mother and my father, you could talk to them about it. But outside of that, I had no one who would really understand what I was. I mean, I didn't even know about all of the organizations that are involved with sickle cell until I got involved. And I found out, wow. Because I was doing, I was helping breast cancer. I was over there with the lupus walks. I didn't even know that I had another organization that I could put my efforts into until I found the SCDAA.
All right. Well, right now we're going to have to take another break, and we'll continue our conversation.
You know what, Fly? Take a break.
I'm taking one, man. Taking one.
I'm here, Fly.
All right. Be there on the other side.
News updates on the web at WOLDCnews.com.
Good morning. This WL Traffic Update is brought to you by the Foundation for a Better Life. Gallatin Street Northeast at Fort Totten Drive. Wires down in the roadway. You'll be directed around that by police on the scene. 295 southbound. Still pretty slow from Benning Road to east to Capitol Street. Earlier accident on Constitution Avenue at 15th Street Northwest downtown. Cleared up. Winston Churchill's words stirred his country in the face of defeat. Today they inspire us to reach for our own victories. Commitment. Pass it on from the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com. Now your WOL weather forecast brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council. For today, partly cloudy, warm day, high near 92 degrees. A few clouds overnight down to 73. Tomorrow, scattered afternoon thunderstorms and a high near 87. Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwantoberecycled.org. A public service message brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council. 82 degrees right now in Washington, D.C. Steve Hirschhorn for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Welcome back to Beyond Just Talk with your host, S.L. Young.
All right, folks, welcome back. We're in the final stretch here of Beyond Just Talk with S.L. Young. My guest today is Kier Junior Spates, and we're talking about sickle cell disease. Before I continue with our conversation, I just want to provide you with some information that was about the SCDAA. The SCDAA, which is the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America, has been on the forefront of improving the life for those affected by this disease for almost 45 years. Its 50-plus member organizations and affiliates have demonstrated the way that community-based organizations can work as partners with medical facilities and local and state government agencies to pursue national healthcare objectives. Some of the data from SCDAA's website about sickle cell disease. Approximately 100,000 people live with sickle cell disease in the U.S. and millions affected globally. Sickle cell disease occurs in 1 out of every 500 African American births and 1 out of every 36,000 Hispanic American births. sickle cell is most common in people with ancestry from Africa, South or Central America, Caribbean islands, India, Saudi Arabia, and Mediterranean countries such as Turkey, Greece, and Italy. So just want to give you a little bit more information there. We're talking about you sharing with everyone about your challenges and your struggles with sickle cell disease. And in 2013, that's when you became the ambassador for SCDAA and to promote the Rise Above campaign. Why was that important to you?
Well, let me tell you something, man. I think that, like I said, we go back to the mindset of overcoming obstacles. And that's going to be something that, that's going to be constant in your life. Is the obstacle is going to become there. And for me, it's sickle cell. Mm-hmm. And people with sickle cell got to understand that, hey, man, life is going to go on. It's going to be some challenges. But you can rise above all of that. You can really overcome it. I mean, not just beat it, but I'm talking about soar above it, man. And it all starts with, okay, I made my mind up. This is who I am. I have sickle cell. But that is not all of who I am. That doesn't define me. I'm not limited to that. I'm way more than that. I can rise above all of this.
And that's a great segue into, do you have any limitations today while living with sickle cell disease?
I am flourishing. You see me.
I see you out there.
I am out here doing it. Y'all tell you something, man. I am out here enjoying my life, man. I am out here enjoying it in spite of sickle cell, man. And that's what my message is all about. I'm here to motivate, uplift, and inspire because we're so much more, man. We're so much more. And sometimes, even in my own family, some people would always try to limit me. Not, I don't want to get into names of who they were, but they said some things that were hurtful to me because I had sickle cell, or they may have done some things, but I didn't let that affect me because, if not, your enemies are always going to be naysayers about you and sickle cell. You might as well get used to it. It's going to be a regular conversation.
Right.
But that doesn't define who you are. Man, you can become the best doctor. I want people with sickle cell to become doctors that fight for sickle cell, not because they want to be doctors. I want them because they got sickle cell and they don't want somebody else to have it.
Which is an important motivation. And before we continue on, I want to provide a little bit more information. So earlier we discussed that a bone marrow transplant can lead to a cure for sickle cell disease. It's important to mention that there's a National Bone Marrow Donor Program, and information on this organization is available at bethematch.org. Also, folks, I want you to know this is your call to action because on April 16, 2015, a bill was reintroduced in the House of Representatives, Bill number 1807, to renew the nation's programs for research, surveillance, prevention, and treatment of sickle cell disease. This bill's goals are to improve the quality of life, treatment for those affected by sickle cell disease, including working toward prevention. This bill includes having funding for 25 sickle cell treatment centers throughout the U.S. and many more valuable services. So please contact your representative to push for the passage of this important bill. And then one other thing I want to make sure that I get in real quick is that to learn more about sickle cell disease, support the SCDAA's efforts, or to make a donation to this invaluable organization, please visit its website at sicklecelldisease.org. So we've covered a lot of information today, and I want to shift to a little bit of information about you and the things that you do beyond sickle cell disease. But before we move on, what encouragement can you provide to someone who is affected by or takes care of someone who has sickle cell disease?
My first words, man, when I talk to people with sickle cell, and I talk to them, it's important for you to feel good. I know that you talk about depression. I've dealt with that. And the one thing that I had to understand was that it was not my fault. I actually tried to kill myself twice and failed both times. Mm. That's how horrible I was at killing myself. I failed twice. You're only supposed to get one shot at it. I failed because I felt like I was so much of a burden. I was tired of going in and out of the hospital. I was tired of getting the bad news. I was tired of getting publicly embarrassed about sickle cell. I was tired of all the ambulance rides. I was tired of the shots. I was tired of the pain medicine. I was tired of all the x-rays. I was tired, man. Mm. I was 15 years old. I was tired. I said there's no other option but for me to just go ahead and take this burden away from my mother and them from taking off work or trying to stay positive. I was tired of all of that, and I tried twice. And yet I failed, and I see why. I never would imagine that I would be putting a face on something that was so neglected. Mm-hmm. And yet, I succeeded, we don't know which state it'd be in. It'd been somebody else, But I'm so glad that I didn't succeed, man. the most important thing is for you to stay with a positive attitude.
And you know, I just want to piggyback on that for a moment, because one of the things that you were just talking about, so if none of you have ever been to the place where you've been really depressed or suicidal, it is about just giving up because you don't think that you have any value anymore.
None.
And let me tell you from my experiences and listen to Mr. Spates talk here right now, get up, keep moving forward. Even if things seem bad right now, just keep moving forward, because just like Mr. Spates, I've done things over the last year that I didn't imagine, including this radio show and being able to help and inspire. So if I had given up, imagine all the folks through all the things that I've shared about depression and suicide, the lives that I might not have saved by having conversation with these folks, as well as what you're doing with your work.
But Fly, this is crazy, man. If it went through, man, do you realize that if somebody with sickle cell is sitting on the #1 morning show in America?
Mm-hmm.
I am actually a member of the Steve Harvey Morning Show, one of the greatest morning shows ever, and I got sickle cell. How did you do it? How did you do it, Kier? I stayed positive.
Right.
I stayed moving, man. I didn't let it get me down. I jumped back up every time I was down. I said, that's all right. I'm down right now, but give me 3 days. Watch I jump back in this fight.
Right. And as we start to get towards the tail end of the show, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your career a little bit. So how long has your journey been to, make it as a comedian?
Oh, man, that journey's still continuing, man. That doesn't stop until I retire, man. That journey is ongoing. I've been doing stand-up for 16 years, and October makes 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
I started when I was 21 years old, man, and I've been rolling ever since. I made a decision that I was going to trust the gift that I had that God had given me, man, and I'm maximizing it.
Right.
And it has been a terrific ride. It was tough. It's always been tough, but I had fun going along the way. You talk about living dangerous. Try being a comedian with no insurance and have sick step. That is dangerous.
Right, I can imagine.
Man, but it has been fantastic, man. I love acting. I really enjoy traveling the country and just doing what I love to do, man. 16 years I've been doing.
And then, so when did you start to act, and what roles have you had?
Man, I've played in some movies, man. I started acting probably when I was about, that goes back when I was about 14. I was actually in church plays and stuff at church, and I ain't really like doing the Easter play that much because that was the hardest one. We didn't have a lot of kids at our church, so I played like 8 different characters in the play.
Uh-huh.
I was Pontius Pilate, then I lead there, then I was Lazarus. You might see me come back in as the demonic man. I was all kind of people. I was one of the beggars. I was all kind of people, man. So that's where the acting thing started. I started going to these summer camps, man, and learn how to build sets and getting involved in it that way. It's just something just to round out who you are. My mom and them just didn't say no. They said, let them go do it, and that was important, man. It's part about being a mindset.
And you're talking about all these positive things, but have you ever doubted yourself, your dream of being a star, or thought about giving up?
I don't think you really invested yourself until you've at least tried to quit 7 times. No, for real. If you don't fail over and over and over, because that shows how much you really want it.
Mm-hmm.
Have I had doubts? Yeah. But then I started looking at all of the things, like you get on the ride and you be like, okay, the car broke down, but you look around, you're not where you started at, man. I was so further down the road than I thought. But then if you want a dream, the biggest way to get the dream, you can't get the dream if you quit.
Right.
You can't get the dream if you quit. The minute you quit, of course you're not going to get it. You stop working towards it. And so, you know what, I just said, hey, man, I'm going to keep going. And I had and let me tell you something, when the Steve Harvey Morning Show came along, I had no idea this was about to happen. I was even ready for it. You ain't never ready for it. The phone call I got and how I got it, man, I'm going to be honest with you, it was the craziest day of my life. I was sitting around just looking at a football game, and the phone rang, and the phone call said, hey, I'm calling because Mr. Harvey wants to discuss your future, not your career. He wants to talk about your future.
Right.
And that was such a different wording that I ever heard. I said, excuse me? He's like, yeah, he wants to help you build your career. He thinks you're a talented young man. He wants to bring you in.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it right there. But what I want to tell folks, if they want to find out more about you, your work, your tour, they can go to your website at juniorontheradio.com. Mr. Spates, thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate it, man. Take it up a strong topic like sickle cell. Thank you so much.
All right. Best of luck to you.
No, best of luck to you, Sly.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All
All right,
man,
folks. I hope that you enjoyed today's show. On next week's show, my guest will be Barry Gribble, who is a rising and award-winning writer and director, has developed several pilots, and was a writer and producer for the A-List on the Animal Planet. Remember, your candle is fueled from within, so don't let anyone reduce or block the fuel to maximize its brightness. Enjoy the rest of your week. Until next time, my friends, have a good one.
News updates on the web at WOL DC News.com.